two brothers, Adolf and Rudolf Dassler, and the sports footwear factory they ran together.
There was always strife between them, serious strife. Basically, they were deadly enemies.
They went their separate ways. One brother founded Adidas, the other Puma, in the same town.
If someone worked for Puma, their son wasn't allowed to play for Adidas.
And the battle continues even today. Puma versus Adidas, or Italy versus France. The final of the 2006 World Cup was a duel of the two team sponsors. At stake, prestige and market share.
We're represented in 56% of all games, so we're the dominant brand on the pitch. We have to dominate this World Cup and show the world that Adidas is clearly #1 in football.
Countless people, even outside the stadium, were witness to an old duel. A brand war was being fought, a war between two brothers. It all began in a washhouse in the South German town of Herzogenaurach, where young Adi Dassler designed and made footwear for sport. Later, he was joined by his brother Rudolf. Together, they made plans.
Setting up a business at that time, in 1920, was a brave move indeed. I take my hat off to them. Although their characters were quite different, until the big split came, the two brothers had got on really well together.
They also had things in common. From an early age, Adolf, who was known as Addy, and Rudolf, who was 2 years older, spent every spare minute outdoors doing sport.
There was always a certain rivalry between the two, especially at sports festivals, where Adolf repeatedly tried to outdo Rudolf.
Soon became clear that Addy was better at sport than Rudolf. No matter how hard his older brother tried. Their talents were different in the workshop too. When it came to the workbench, Addy had all the skills. He'd spend days and nights developing one gym shoe after another.
Adolf was a very placid person. Someone rooted in the soil, rather unobtrusive. But when his work was involved, it really came to life. Their characters certainly were different.
As the company grew and discussions with new employees and customers became increasingly important, it became clear that while Addy was an excellent designer and craftsman inventor, Rudolf was an outstanding salesman, a born businessman.
He had the gift of the gab. When you're building up a business, nobody comes to you of their own accord. You've got to make yourself known. And that was my brother-in-law's forte. He built up the business on the basis that he would look after the commercial side while my brother attended to the technical side.
Rudolf Dassler didn't really belong in a quiet, sleepy place like Herzogenaurach. He liked to present himself as a man of the world. Rudolf set up a family long before his brother. He and his wife Friedel had a son, Armin. A young father and newly fledged businessman, Rudolf Dassler faced a bright future.
He was a real figure of authority, someone not afraid to raise his voice. I always remember him as a really important person who usually smoked a pipe or a cigar. In his way, he was very authoritarian. I know that he was a highly impulsive person, someone who also had an eye for the ladies, and he was very popular with the fairer sex.
The whole town knew that Rudolf Dassler was a lady killer, and Friedel, his wife, was also aware of his affairs.
She too knew that he had an eye for the ladies, and sadly she found out about a local affair while she was expecting their child. That was terrible for my sister. It was actually the worst thing to bear because she wasn't so much confronted with his dalliances when he was on holiday. Quite a few men went astray when they were on holiday, but news of an escapade closer to home filtered through, and that, of course, was really painful for my sister.
In 1933, Adolf Hitler seized power. The Dasslers interpreted the signs of the new era in their own particular way. They reckoned it opened up a host of opportunities for them because the Nazis, too, were keen on sporting activity. Lots of new gym shoes were needed. Soon, flags bearing the swastika could be seen all over Herzogenaurach, too. Adi and Rudolf Dassler didn't intend to be left in the wings. In May 1933, only a few months after Hitler was elected, the Dassler brothers became members of the Nazi Party. Years later, they were to regret the step. But at the time, the Dasslers were still focused on building up their joint company and on little else.
Obviously, a company like the Dassler brothers firm benefited greatly from the government backing sport received. It was one way of getting young people involved in National Socialism.
There was plenty going on in the family circle too. Another wedding was about to take place, and it was being celebrated as a minor sensation because Adi had been regarded as a dyed-in-the-wool bachelor. Käthe, Adi's blonde bride, came from the shoemaking town of Pirmasens. So in the narrow world of Herzogenaurach, she was someone from outside. Rudolf was best man. By now, the Dasslers were among the town's wealthiest citizens. The two couples got on really well together. At first, that is. Because of the booming demand for gym shoes under the Nazi regime, the Dassler brothers needed bigger and bigger factory buildings. The company grew rapidly. The two wives, Adi's Käthe and Rudolf's Friedel, also played a role in running it, even after they'd recently given birth.
Friedel usually worked through from Saturday to Sunday. She was a real Trojan. She did all the bookkeeping. My sister simply fitted in to the family firm community.
In die Gemeinschaft.
After the birth of their son, Horst, Adi's wife Käthe was also expected to play a full role in the company, but she had a mind of her own.
Die Käthe is coming.
When Käthe arrived, she refused to fit in. And she was only 17 when she got married, but she already knew what she wanted. And she went her own way.
Friedel, the reserved wife, and Käthe, the single-minded one. Conflict was pre-programmed. You could almost feel the tension between the two women. Käthe had brought commercial ambition into the marriage.
Adolf would never have been able to set up a firm on his own. That was all Käthe's work. She was the driving force. When it came to business, Rudolf and Käthe were virtually cast in the same mold.
As yet, this was of no importance at all to the next generation. Armin, Rudolf and Friedel's son, and Horst, son of Adi and Käthe, the two cousins got on well together, but that wouldn't always be the case. Despite the tension between Friedel and Käthe, the two families moved into a splendid house together, right next to the factory.
Adolf and his family lived on the ground floor. The first floor belonged to Rudolf and his family, and above them lived the parents.
All under one roof. That was bound to cause problems. Disputes became more and more frequent.
When two brothers build up a family, it's fairly natural in the initial stages for them to work together. The company grows. The brothers and their sons get older. The sons marry, so the number of families increases. But having several families in one company rarely works out.
Das geht meist nicht ganz gut.
Chapeau gone. Adidas versus Puma.